So Resident Evil 4 VR is probably one of my favorite games for the Quest 2. Part of the reason I love that game are the reloading mechanics. Reloading all of Leon's weapons feels so freaking good, so I challenged myself to see if I can replicate that reloading mechanic in Horizon Worlds. So I'm going to show you how I did that and how you can too. Stick around.
Last time we made our little laser gun, kind of loosely inspired by the Fallout series, and we gave it some recoil. We used the projectile launcher to launch projectiles, and if our hand gets closer, we stabilize that recoil. Blam. So if you missed that video, be sure to check that one out. But today we want to try to replicate the kind of ammo clip system like you see in Resident Evil 4 VR. So what the plan is to be able to take like a magazine or a battery or a clip, whatever, and put it in a very specific location of your gun, and then that would trigger the amount of ammo you have, maybe have a sound effect, and be able to essentially re-up your ammo. Right now it's just shooting infinitely, but we will set that in code. And then we also want to have a button press, like button 1, and then be able to take that object in here and then eject it out the side of it, and then be able to attach another one. So that's a lot of stuff to do. When we do it, you won't see it's that hard, but it might just take a time. So this video might be pretty long, or maybe I'll just end up breaking this into multiple videos. Okay, so there we go. That's the plan. We are essentially going to make a reloadable weapon. Long story short. So let's get started by first. We set up the projectile gizmo last time loosely, but I want to change some things real quick. So if we open up the projectile launcher properties panel, we can see that it has a default speed. I want to change this to pistol, just to give it a little smaller, make it seem more like a laser beam. And we're going to change the speed to 400, because I believe that's what Arena Clash has their projectile launcher speed to, 400. And then because this is the iconic laser pistol from Fallout, we're going to make sure that this is red. So we're just going to change the red to 1, the RGB, the green to 0, and the blue to 0. So we got a pure red beam. So let's check that out real quick. There we go. Pew, 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 pew. Now we have more of like a laser looking coming out of our gun. Because the trail effect is long, it really looks like a laser. I love it. Great. Now that that's out of the way, we can start actually dealing with this battery. Where do I do with it? There it is. Okay. We are actually going to have 3 of these batteries, and I'll explain what each of them do. One battery, we're not going to have collidability or grabability on it. We're actually going to take one of these and we're going to add it to the gun. We're actually going to put it inside of the group so it stays there permanently forever, but we will still access its properties panel so we can hide it, basically make it so it's invisible and revisible when we want to. That's ideally. So ideally, it's always going to be here, but when we eject it, we are going to hide it so you can't see it, and then when we load it, we will reappear it so you know visually that the weapon is loaded or not. Then we are going to have another grabbable one, the one that you will actually take with your other hand and place it into the chamber. And then we are also going to have a dummy one, or a dead one, that will eject out the side of it when we hit a button. So ideally, we're going to make 3 of these. So let's open the properties panel. Let's name this. We're going to name this main one battery. And this one I only have grabbable on. That's fine for now. So let's duplicate this using our duplicate tool. We can activate that by putting our thumbstick to the right on our right hand. And then we're just gonna bloop. We're gonna duplicate it. This is going to be our asset, essentially the visual asset that's going to be attached to our gun. So we're just gonna put in. We're gonna call this the in battery. This one won't ever move. All we're gonna be doing with this through script is changing the visibility on it. So we can actually turn. We will get rid of interactable because we don't need that, and then we also don't want it to be collidable. It's just going to be a visual asset. That's it. That we're going to turn on and off. We can even hit none here. Yeah. And so the way we're going to add that to this gun, we'll do that first, is we're going to take it, just like we did in the last video, what we did with our projectile gizmo. We are going to select it like this, and then we're going to place it where we want it. I want to put it right there. I kind of designed it to fit right in this slot. So that's what the gun will look like when it's loaded. And we want that to stay there. Uh-oh. Oh no. I didn't. Whoops, hold on. So you want to make sure that stays wireframed. So we're going to put that right there. And while it's wireframed like that, just like we did last time, we're going to go up to the laser gun properties panel, and we are going to go inside of the group. And then we are going to hit the trigger in the air to deselect the battery. Now that wireframe the battery is gone, which means when we leave the laser gun group, it should stay in here with it. So let's leave the group. And then now that is staying there forever. But now that we have the properties panel accessible, the in battery properties panel, we'll just put that to the side for now. We'll be able through script to change the visibility on that, on and off. Okay. And then the one more battery we're going to need, so we're going to duplicate this one more time. This is going to be our battery that is going to eject out the side. So we don't want this one to be grabbable. We only want this one to have physics. So visible, collidable, and then we're only going to hit physics here. Blam, and that falls to the ground. And for now, we could just leave that here. We don't need to touch this for a while. So we're going to put it back here. Make sure its properties panel is out. We're going to call this, we're going to rename it battery dummy. Just so we know that this is the dummy battery. There we go. All right, so now all of our battery assets are kind of ready. So we can start scripting. Oh, wait, one more thing. So for, just so we can see better, I'm going to go ahead and take the in battery and I'm going to disable the visibility on it for now. Just so we can see. There's one more thing we want to add to this gun, and we need to add a trigger gizmo. This trigger gizmo is going to do a couple of things for us. It is going to detect when we try to put a battery in, and also its axes will also determine which direction we will eject the dummy battery. So if we want to use this as a position and then eject the dummy battery out of it, we want to make sure it's pointing in the Z plus. This is essentially the Z plus, if you see that right here, is the forward direction of any object. So by default, if we script to have the dummy battery launch out of this trigger, we want to make sure that this Z plus arrow is pointing in the direction we want to eject it in. So we're just going to eject it out the side. So we're going to do essentially the same thing. I'm going to use this battery as a reference. I'm going to select it. And I will take these squares. And I'm basically with the, I'm going to take these squares with the snap tool on. And I'm basically just going to make sure that this trigger is the same size as our battery. Blam. So we're just going to take this and snap it to the sides. Just so this trigger, is the exact same size as our battery. And then we'll drag that out. And ideally, remember, like I said, I want to make sure that the side of it is the Z plus. So technically we want the forward position of this trigger to point in the way we want it. So essentially, we're going to put this in the exact same location as our in battery, and we're going to do it the exact same way. So we're going to wire select this by selecting it. Then we are going to, with snapping on, we're going to put it in the same exact location. Blam. And while it's still selected in blue, we're going to go into the laser gun object. We'll go into the laser gun object. And right before we unselect it, I want to get the properties panel. So we're going to put our cursor in it and press up on the thumbstick to get our triggers properties panel. Perfect. And then we are going to deselect it and then leave the group. So now, again, if we shake this around, that trigger is in there. And then if we turn back on our in battery, visible, they're both in there. And so we don't have to worry about our in battery triggering this trigger because one, it's not collidable, and two, it won't have the proper tag. So let's talk about the tag real quick. Remember, we're just trying to set everything up to what we need it to be before we start scripting. So a trigger will detect when certain objects go in. To determine which object we want to detect, we have to first switch trigger on to objects. Because we don't care if our hand is in it or if a player enters that trigger, we want a specific object to be notified when we enter that trigger. And we're just going to call this battery. So basically right here we're saying we're only detecting objects that have the tag battery. So we're going to go to our first battery. This is the grabbable object. This is the one we're actually going to physically pick up with our hand and put inside of this trigger. So this battery specifically, we want to also have the tag battery. So we'll open up that battery's properties panel. We'll go to more, attributes. And then down on tag, we want to make sure that it's spelled exactly the same as our tag. So we will put battery. So now this object has the tag battery. So then this trigger will detect when we when we insert this battery into that trigger. Okay, that was a lot of setup. If you need to, make sure you go back and set that all up. But now with all of that set and good to go, this is still grabbable, right? Yeah, we should be ready to alter our script. So let's open up the laser gun script. If you remember this from last time, this is literally just us launching when we shoot the gun and us kind of playing with the kickback. So the first thing we want to do is what happens when we insert a battery into our laser gun. We want to have a certain amount of ammo or a certain amount of shots that we can take before it's empty. So for that, we're going to play with some numbers. We're going to make some number variables. So we'll go over to variables and we're going to make two number variables. We're going to put current ammo, so CRU ammo, as a number variable. And we'll hit confirm. And then we want max ammo. How many shots are we going to get when we first load up our laser gun? And we're constantly going to be comparing these to each other. So max ammo, let's say, crazy number, let's just put 20. So when we load in a fresh battery into our laser gun, we have 20 shots available to us. Might be a lot, but if we decide to go fully automatic, it might kind of make sense. But current ammo is what we want. So first things first, we need to be able to detect what happens with this trigger in this script. So we're going to take this when world is started. When world is started, we want to connect an event. So we will go to connect to event. Put that here. We basically want to connect the event of something entering this trigger and it detecting it to the main object of the whole laser gun. Now, technically, if you wanted to, you could make a whole separate script, attach it to only the trigger, and have the trigger send this script an event. But this is a way that we can condense it all into one script. So we want to know the trigger enter of the trigger, and then we want to attach it to as if we are trigger entering the main gun. So if you can't get your head around that, that's okay. Literally all you have to do is set this line up when world is started. We're going to reference the trigger right here, just like we did the projectile launcher. So we're going to make a new variable. We're just going to call it trigger. Make it an object. And we will put that instead of self. So basically we're connecting to the trigger, and what we want to know is when the trigger has something entering in it. That's all this says. What's going to happen, right? What is going to happen when we sense a trigger enter on that trigger? Well, essentially all we want to do is fill up our ammo. So all we're going to do is make an event. So let's find out when. So because we put this on world start, we will know when something is triggered. We will know when something enters that trigger. So we put when trigger is entered by object. And remember, we are only going to get this if the trigger is entered by an object with the correct tag. So we don't have to worry about other objects entering the trigger. We want to set to. We are going to set current ammo to the value of max ammo. That's all we're doing, technically. Within the script, all we're doing is changing it so we have max ammo. We have reloaded our weapon. Also, we technically want this to, because we're making the illusion, essentially, that when we insert this into the trigger, this one disappears, and this guy inside of here reappears. So in the beginning, we're actually going to go and set this to not visible by default. So what we want to do to make the illusion work is we're going to go to actions and we're going to go to set object visibility. We're also going to put this under when trigger is entered by object. Now we also need, the reason we kept the properties panel of in battery up, we need to reference it with another variable. So we're going to type in battery, same name. And we're going to make sure this is an object and confirm it. So we're going to change the visibility of in battery to true. Awesome. And we will also, I think eventually we'll have this go away, maybe disappear into a pouch. But for now, first thing what we have to do for it to quote unquote disappear, first we have to let go of it. And we can force ourselves to do that. So we'll go to force release. And we'll force release the object that's entering the trigger. So we can just take this object and place it in right there. Awesome. Let's just try that out before we go any farther. So let's go back into our world. First, we'll have to go to laser gun. And we made a new variable. Sometimes it won't pop up here. So we'll have to close that and then click back on our gun, or put a cursor back on our gun and then reopen our properties panel. And now you see we have some variables we made that we need to identify. So remember, the in battery is right here. We left that properties panel. So we'll drag that pill here. And the trigger is right here. We'll drag that and put it in the trigger spot. Easy. Now everything should be set up so we can at least set this one to visible, and then we'll let go of this one. So let's try that. So we have our gun, and then we'll pick this up, place it in our trigger, bloop, and then we've automatically let go of this. That was forceful. Ideally, we would also maybe make this one also be invisible and then teleport it somewhere so we can act maybe back to our belt or something. We'll get to that. But ideally, we did exactly what we wanted to do. So let's go back and we're going to reset the world. Easy squeezy. I figured we also, let's put physics back on this. So we'll hit both just so it actually falls out of our hand. I don't know if that makes sense, but sure. So now if we try it, blam, pick this up, put it in, bloop. Ideally that would also disappear, and then it looks like we just inserted it in, and then this magnetically accepted it. Poo 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 poo. Great. Alright, now you should start seeing the illusion we're making. Ideally what we could do, right? Let's set this guy up first, because I want to really head home. I really want to hit home the illusion we're making. So instead of just releasing it, we're also going to attach it. Like, let's say we had an ammo pouch on our belt. We want to reattach it to that ammo belt so then we can take it off and reload it again. So for now, we'll just say attach attachable object to player. And the object we want to attach is the object that we put in the trigger. We want to attach it to the player, aka the owner of this gun. So if you remember in the last video, we used owner of self before. So we'll just grab that, put it over the player slot, and then to the right, we will bump our right thumbstick to the right to duplicate that line of code. Remember to duplicate it and not actually replace it, or it'll disappear here. And let's attach it to our torso. Now it's going to go... Now, we also need to make sure we turn the battery into an attachable object. So we will put attachable, and we'll just put an anchor. Now, the anchor position, ideally, you want to play around with these numbers. So when it attaches to you, it'll attach to a very specific location. Now, I've played with these numbers before, so I kind of know where I would want to attach it, but you can play with this however you want. Maybe you want it attached to the front of you, maybe you want it attached somewhere else, you know, but we are going to attach it. I think it'll be a little off to the left. I don't know, that could be wrong. Let's try it. Force release and attach. So let's try this to see if it attaches to the right spot. Go in, grab it, grab this. We will bloop. Oh, that's a little high. But that's cool too. That could be right at your shoulder, wherever you want. But essentially now we could shoot this, and then if that, you know, we ejected that, then we could take this and put it back in. See, every time we do it, it does that. Boop, 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 boop. Ideally, we don't want to be able to do this, right? We don't want to be able to put in a battery while there's already one in there. So we got a little more scripting to do. All right. So now we've done that. We can adjust the anchor point later if we want. But first, I think the main point is like, right, we want to refill the ammo value, but right now there's nothing stopping us from shooting infinitely. So we need to take the function we made for when index trigger is pressed and make it that this only happens if our current ammo is greater than 0. So we'll literally just put that as an if statement. We'll go to events, scroll to the top, grab if, put that right at the top of here, and then we'll take all these things and we'll throw it underneath. And all we want to do is make sure that our current ammo is greater than 0. So we will go to operators, scroll to the top, grab the greater than symbol, plop it right here, and we want to make sure our current ammo is greater than, go to values, input, 0. So now when we load our weapon by entering the battery into the trigger, we'll set it to the max ammo, which we had originally established as 20. So then current ammo will equal more than 0, but we also want it to go down every time we take a shot, right? So we need to, after we shoot, after we launch projectile, after we rotate, we want to set our current ammo to whatever current ammo was minus one shot. So we will take the minus operator, put it in the value. We're going to duplicate current ammo, and then we want to subtract it by 1. So I'm just going to take this, duplicate that here, and then change this value to 1. For this demo, let's change this to a lesser number. Let's change this to 6 for now. So every time you launch it, put a battery in there, we got 6 shots. So let's reset the world and give that a shot. So we have our gun. Oh, we can't shoot because remember, by default, current ammo is set to 0. So we have nothing, right? Let's grab our battery. Let's put it inside. Bloop. That reappeared. This went here. And now our current ammo should be at 6. So we should be able to take 6 shots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you can see me pulling the trigger still. Nothing happens because that means we are empty. And now we want to put this back in. Boop. Same thing happens. We got 6 more shots. Awesome. But now, like he said, we don't want to continuously be able to put something in there, right? So I think we need to make a boolean that says there is a battery inside of the gun. So we're going to make a new variable, and we're going to call it bat is, let's make some of these capitalized, is in. I don't like that. We need to call this something else. We'll just call this loaded. Whether the gun is loaded with a battery or not. And we're going to change this to a type of boolean. Now a boolean is a special value that can only be true or false. Because we're planning to spawn in with it empty, we're going to leave this at the default of false. But when we put this into the gun, we want to make sure it is loaded. So we will take another set2 command under values. We'll do set2 here at the bottom. And we want to take loaded. We want to change that value to be true. So we'll go to values. We will get a boolean input, hit it to true. So we'll set that to true, But we also want to make sure none of this can happen if this is already true. So we're going to do another if statement, just like we did with firing. So we're going to put an if statement here. And we're going to put all of these things underneath the if statement, because we only want to put a battery inside of our laser gun if it isn't already loaded. So we want to make sure that we'll go to the equals tab. We want to make sure that loaded, and we'll duplicate this up here. We'll also duplicate this input here, but call it false. So if loaded equals false, while we put a battery inside of the trigger, then all of this stuff will happen, including setting loaded to true. Awesome. So let's make sure that works real quick. Let's go back in the world. We'll grab our gun, grab our battery. Uh-oh, we broke something. What did we break? Oh, did I? Oh, our okay, my world was paused. I didn't break anything. All right, let's try that again. So let's give that a shot. So we'll go in, we'll grab our gun, grab our battery, place it inside, blam. Our extra battery went here. This is loaded. We'll shoot 6 times. Oh no, we're out. And now, because this battery is still in here, yep, this doesn't work. Awesome. Because even though the battery is empty, the battery is still loaded in the gun. And we can't shoot anymore until we eject this battery. So let's now script how to eject the battery. All right. So now we want an eject command. Let's reset the world. So we already determined if we pull the trigger and we have current ammo, we can shoot. Now we'll do a different button input, and we'll send an event called eject. So first, let's get that input. Let's go to events. We're going to go down to button 1 is pressed. We'll just pop that in our timeline. Oh, we'll just pop that in our script. So for those of you who don't know, button 1 is the A and X button on each of your controllers. And it determines on the hand you're grabbing it in. So if we're grabbing it with our right hand and we want to eject, we hit the A button. If we're grabbing it with our left hand and we want to eject, we hit the X button. Both of them are the actual buttons on the face of your controllers towards the bottom. Okay, now when we hit that button, we want to do an eject. So what are we going to do when we eject? Well, remember, we are getting rid of the loaded state. So we want to take loaded, that boolean we made, and set that back to false. So we'll scroll that and we'll just duplicate that down here. And instead of to true, we will set it to false. Awesome. So now our gun can be loaded again. What else do we need to make sure? Well, if we think logically about it, if the battery is no longer in the laser gun, well, then the laser gun shouldn't be able to shoot. How do we make the laser gun not be able to shoot anymore? Well, then we can do the opposite of setting current ammo to max ammo, and we can just set current ammo to 0. So let's do that. We'll take, again, the set ammo code block that we made, duplicate it here, and instead of setting it to max ammo, we'll delete that. We'll take this 0 and duplicate that here. So now, because we are setting current ammo to 0 when there's no battery in it, then we definitely can't shoot. Awesome. Now, we also wanted to make it visually awesome, and that's why we made our dummy battery. Now we can start to use that one. So we'll make a variable again, and we're going to make another variable calling our dummy battery. So we'll just call this, just like it's named in the properties panel, battery dummy. And we'll make that an object. Great. So we also want the dummy battery to kind of pop out the side when we hit the eject button, just for that like kind of nice satisfying feel. And because we gave it physics, it can have like a little bit of a oomph to it, a little bit of velocity. So, and the way to do that is also super easy. We're going to go to the actions panel, and then we're going to look for not launch projectile, but that's another one. Oh, this might be under movement, motion. Yeah, launch from object. Okay. So we're going to take that and throw that under here. And what we want to do is launch the dummy battery, our new dummy battery, and we want to launch it, remember, how we set up our trigger, we want to launch it from the trigger. And from the trigger meaning the trigger's X plus position. And remember, we set up our trigger to make sure the X plus is out the side of the gun. So we're also going to reference our trigger. Good thing we already made a variable for it, and we can place that right here. Now launching it at speed 10 seems a little much. Let's put it down to like a 3. That might even be too much, but let's just see what that is. Are we forgetting anything? Oh yeah, and we also, if we're launching a dummy battery out the side, we also want to make sure the battery that always lives inside the laser gun is also hidden again. So we will also take the opposite of this. Set in battery visible to true. Let's duplicate that underneath our little eject command and set this to false. All right. Now let's go check that. Oh, first, remember, we made a new variable, so we need to reference what that variable is. Let's open up the laser gun. It's not showing us, so let's close out the properties panel and then reopen it. Now we should see our dummy battery. Open up the dummy battery properties panel. Grab the reference pill and throw it in right here. Nice. Now all of that should be working fine unless I forgot something. But let's go test it out. Alright. Here we go. We got our gun. It does not shoot. We got our battery. Blam. And we have our spare battery here. We have one inside the gun. We're going to shoot 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can't shoot anymore. We can't put the next one in. Now let's see if we can eject it by hitting button 1. No. Okay. Whoops. So 1, we shouldn't be able to keep doing this. 2, it's also reorienting the battery to be pointing that way, which might not matter to you. We can go in and like try to change the direction, but okay. Couple things first. First, we don't want to be able to keep hitting the eject button, right? So, just like we did with trigger enter, we also want to make sure that we can't eject unless loaded equals true. Remember, pretty much the ejecting is going to be the opposite of the loading. So we are going to do the same thing we did with the loading, and we are going to take an if statement, put it under our button 1 press, put this all underneath of it. And then remember, we only want to make sure that this all happens if loading equals true. So we're going to put loading, an input, and set it to true. So now when we hit that button, we'll find out if loading equals to true. If it does, then we will do all of this. Now technically, I could have just put the loading variable in by itself. If you put the loading variable in by itself, it's assuming you mean it's true. But I just put this here so you can better understand it. All right, let's try that just to make sure we can't keep ejecting a dummy battery. So we'll grab this, we'll grab that, load it in, and then 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to shoot 3 times and then eject. Make sure we can't shoot anymore. Yep, because we've set our current ammo to 0. And if I keep hitting eject, nothing happens because there's nothing to eject. Awesome. Do that again and eject. We can do this all day. Boop. Boop. Awesome. Nice. Okay, I think want to switch out that battery and just rotate it. So how we're going to do that, we are basically going to make a new group by, we're going to grab a tiny square. We are going to make sure the square is facing the right way according to this. So make sure the Z plus is out the side. It's going to make this kind of, oh man. We're going to take our square. We're going to make it small. Turn snapping on and make sure the Z plus is pointing out the side. And we're going to make a new group. We're going to select the square first. Boop. And then the larger object. And then hit group. So now this group is going to be the new thing we're going to reference. So this will now become the dummy battery. Make sure it has physics. Then we're going to go inside of the group and just delete that original square. Now it's facing the, now we have the Z axis facing the right way, and now we have to re-establish this as the dummy battery. So we're going to take this pill and drop it here. Blam. Now there's a couple different ways we could have done that if you really wanted to change the Z axis. You could have just kind of disassembled the object again and then reassembled it with Z axis pointing that way. But that's just a quick way I did it, and we just re-referenced that variable. Okay, so now let's give that one more shot to make sure everything's working out the way we want to. We'll grab this. We'll grab our spare battery. Put it in the trigger. Oh. Let's play our world, huh? There we go. All right, we'll grab this. We will grab... I know, my controller batteries are low. We will put this inside of the trigger. Bloop. Now it's equipped it in. I have a spare one here. We'll shoot 6 times. 1, 2, whoa. It's a glitch. All right, 5, 6. And now we'll eject our battery. Hopefully it'll eject sideways this time. Nice. We can't eject again, but we can put another one in here. Shoot once. Eject. Bloop. Oh, we can't shoot anymore because we ejected our battery. Bloop. Nice. Now you can start to see how we have a little system, and you can start even making another variable on how much ammo we have, and saying that like this won't appear back here unless you have ammo in reserves. Boop. Pew. You can do cool reload tricks now. Oh, maybe not. Yeah. Nice. There you are. So we're probably going to continue later on with some different firing types. Like, of course, we have our single shot semi-automatic. Maybe we'll do fully automatic, burst fire, shotgun, and sniper rifle. If you want any of those different firing types, let me know in the comments below which one you're most interested in, and then that'll be the one we do next. Yeah, there you go. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe so you always know when there's another tutorial. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye!